It really is that easy. There is nothing more to it. It looks pretty, but it's super, super easy. Nobody pays as much attention to flavour. Yes, the cakes look nice, but my biggest thing is that when people eat the cakes, it's an amazing experience, both from baking the cake, but also when you get to eat it. Hello, I'm Maja from Maja Rose Cake Design. I thought I would take you through the process of making a raspberry and rosewater cake today. That we are going to be doing a whole bunch of flavour infusing, and that's the case with most of our kits actually, but with this one in particular, what we need to do is start by infusing our cream with chai. The reason that we're doing that is because this is a chai spiced cake with a raspberry and rosewater buttercream and some crushed pistachios. So let's get started. What I've got here is 300 grams of cream already measured out. I use a scale, just any ordinary kitchen scale is great because I think that's a much better way to get precise measurements when you're baking. If you don't have one, it's okay. You can use a measuring jug like this and just measure it out to 300 ml, or with cream, you can just buy a 300 ml and then you know that you're good. So in with the cream, just like that. I really like to use these rubber spatulas, and if you like to bake and you're doing that quite a lot, this is a really good investment to make. What we have here is the chai. It all goes in. It's already measured and ready to go. Straight in the pot. Put that straight on the stove. Let it come to a very gentle boil. So we just want to see bubbles coming around the side. We don't want a full-on boil where the cream is going to burn. We just want to warm it up enough to infuse the cream, let it sit, and we'll come back and do the rest. So our chai's been sitting in the cream for about 15 minutes, and I guess you'll see that it's ready to go because firstly you can smell it, and secondly you'll just see that the colour of the cream's changed. It looks a little bit caramelly now, which is what we want. I guess what's important to note here is that the cream shouldn't be boiling hot, and that's part of the reason also why it needs to sit for about 15 minutes, because I guess what will happen if the cream is boiling and you combine it with the eggs will just curdle and cook. To make sure that you basically put your eggs and sugar in together and mix them, the sugar will prevent the eggs from cooking straight away from the heat. So let's do that now. We'll break our eggs straight into the bowl. And our packet of sugar. So we're just going in and mixing our sugar and eggs, just enough to combine everything so the yolks are broken and the sugar and the eggs are incorporated, as I said, so that when we're adding our warm cream, it will not cook the eggs. So the trick with making cakes or baking a good cake, whether it's this one or any other recipe for that matter, is not to over mix your cake batter. Now, that only applies once you put your flour in, because the flour can be overdeveloped, the gluten in the flour can be overdeveloped, which means that your cakes might come out very stodgy, hard, dense. We don't want that. Mixing the batter before the flour goes in is completely fine. In fact, the more you mix it, the better. But this recipe, once again, is super easy. You don't need to mix it any further than just having it combined. Now, I don't want to say that and make you worried about how much you're mixing your flour. Chances are, if you're mixing your cake by hand, you will not overdevelop the gluten. It's very unlikely that you'll overmix it if you're doing it by hand. Usually people do it by mixer, and the mixer does it much, much quicker. You can absolutely do this in the mixer, but it's not necessary because it is so simple. But you can if you really want to. You just need to be careful that you're basically, you mix it for about 30 seconds maximum once the flour goes in. And that's all it is. It's just until you can see no more white flour and it's all combined and there are no enormous lumps. That's all. Now at this point I'm going to switch over to my rubber spatula again because it works much better to get to scrape down the bowl. And we are going to 300. Now in these recipes I have accounted for people who don't scrape down the bowl, so there should be a little bit extra. So if you have more than 300, once you've filled up your baking pans, just go back and just evenly distribute it. All right, and that's that for baking cake. What I recommend is, because these are, I guess, paper or cardboard, they're a little bit flimsier, and you can absolutely put these in the oven one by one just like that. I just think if you have a tray that will fit all three on, it might be a little bit easier to handle them when you're checking whether or not they're done later and getting them out of the oven without having to put your hands in. So let's make some Swiss meringue buttercream. The kit comes with some powder that's already pre-prepared, and it actually allows us to make Swiss meringue buttercream in about 5 to 10 minutes. It provides the same result as making it from scratch, but it's just so much easier. So first of all, we've got our butter, and what we're going to do is incorporate the meringue powder and the butter. I just want to show you the consistency. So it's still holding firm in terms of holding its shape. It's not melted and it's not oozy, but if you try to squish it, it just goes straight through. The reason that we want it to be soft but not melted is obviously if it's melted and you bring it together, it will just become a glaze and you won't be able to work with it. It doesn't mean that it's ruined, it just means that it needs to go back in the fridge and you need to wait for it to set and then re-whip it. If the butter is too firm, it will not combine properly, and it will probably take twice as long for everything to just come together, and you'll need to keep whipping it a lot longer than you have to. I've just had this butter sitting out on the bench, and it's come to room temperature, and it's perfect. But if you don't have time to do that and your butter is out of the fridge, then put it in the microwave safe bowl and then just blitz it in the microwave very slowly. So I'm talking about 10 seconds at a time, test it and then go again. Please don't do it for 30 seconds or a minute first up, because it will turn to liquid and you'll have to put it back in the fridge and wait. Butter in, our meringue powder. Okay, so all we want is to just essentially saturate the powder with a little bit of butter so that it doesn't fly. That's the only reason that we need to do this, just to avoid making a mess. Start slowly. And once it's been incorporated and it's no longer at risk of making a mess, we'll just turn it up and let the butter fluff. Okay, now once that's incorporated and fluffed up a little bit, we're just going in with 100 mils of water in this case, but just we're adding it slowly to let it incorporate a little bit at a time. Again, the speed of the mixer is low until the water is incorporated, and then we'll fluff it up again. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. You'll see that once it's fluffed enough, the butter actually loses the yellow and it starts to pale out quite a bit, and that's, you know that it's been aerated sufficiently and it just looks light and fluffy. Now there's just a couple of things that I want to say that normally, I'm not going to say go wrong, because it's not that they go wrong. This buttercream is very forgiving and it's very unlikely that you will stuff it up and not make it work, but people get a little bit concerned when occasionally, if the butter is too cold, the fats and the liquids start to separate from each other, so it starts to look like it's curdled. Please don't stop. All you need to do is keep mixing, or if you want it to come together faster, just get a microwave safe bowl, take out a little bit, put it in the microwave, melt it, and then return it back in. It's just a temperature issue. That is all that can possibly go wrong with this. The other thing is that if you do notice that when you start mixing the butter and it hasn't come to room temperature or it is too cold, and you'll be able to tell when you start mixing, because it kind of starts to hit against the bowl and you'll see that it's not combining. What you do is the 100 mils of water that you're adding in, just adjust the temperature of the water. So if your butter is too warm, just make the water cold to counter the temperature of the butter, and vice versa. If your butter is too cold, just make the water a little bit warmer and it'll just counter that temperature as well. And you know, like at the end of the day, if it's too cold, just keep whipping, it'll come together. If you've overheated it, put it back in the fridge. It's okay. It will come together. You have not ruined it. It will not affect anything. It just might take a little bit more time, that's all. Okay, so this is the point at which our Swiss meringue buttercream is done. The consistency that I have here is pretty good for piped cakes. We want that to be holding quite firm. For filling any cake, whether it's a piped cake or a covered cake, the inside of the cake needs to have firm buttercream. Why? Because once we start layering the cake, this is especially true for cakes which have multiple layers. If the buttercream is too soft, the layers will start to slide and it becomes very hard to work with. When the buttercream is like this, it just means that it will hold shape and work for you much, much easier. Okay, so at this point, this is our base for any buttercream. In this case, as I said, we'll be using our raspberry and rosewater jam to flavor it, and then use a little bit of pink oil, coloring oil, just to make it the color that we like before we can work with it. Now, I'm actually going to add all of this in because I think that gives it a really great flavor. All right, so our jam and buttercream are combined, and that will now taste delicious. And you can of course leave it. If you prefer not to use any color in the cake, that's absolutely fine. It will not affect anything other than the look of the buttercream. So that will taste delicious. It smells delicious. I can really smell that jam. But for me, as a cake maker, I like things to look right. So I'm going to add a little bit of the rose coloring oil just to make it a little bit of a more vibrant color. But again, if you prefer not to, you absolutely don't have to. I just want to mention actually with these colors, it comes with a very tight seal over the top. I think the best way is to just piece it with a knife. It is the fastest way and the cleanest way, I think, to do it. So just a small sharp knife, just go around the sides and then peel it right off. Don't try and peel it off with your fingers because it just won't work and you'll probably end up with color everywhere. Okay, give it a shake. I should mention that you can use a hand mixer, a handheld mixer for this as well. It doesn't need to be a stand mixer. I'm usually using my KitchenAid, but I'm using the Kenwood here just to demonstrate that it can be any type of mixer. A handheld is fine, it just might take a little bit longer and you have to stand there and hold it as opposed to, you know, leaving a stand mixer and being able to walk away from it, that's all. Once again, in this case, we were adding jam. For other flavors, you'll be adding sachets of cookie dough, color. Irrespective of what it is, the process of making any of these buttercreams is exactly the same. The additives are all at the end. Super easy and super delicious. The cakes have been in the oven for about 30 minutes, and basically I'm just touching it with my finger, and if the cake is springing back, it's a very good sign that it's probably ready. But just to be sure, we're going to stick a knife in just a little bit, pull it out and make sure that it's not gooey on the inside. And these are perfect. We're done. Our layers are trimmed and ready to go, so let's build the cake. So I've just got a little offset spatula. I'm going to grab a little bit of that buttercream, maybe just like a tablespoon's worth, maybe even less, just to secure our cake to the board. And we just want to spread that out. We don't want to be going any more than the cake. What I mean by that is once you put the cake, you don't want to see the buttercream. It's just there to hold it down, that's all. We don't need to see it. So once that's down, just press down with your hand until it's adhered. Now, this is probably the most important and probably the only thing that's important to know. This cake is that easy. People just get a little bit intimidated about piping. So what we need to know here is that so place it where you want it to be, start applying pressure and keep applying pressure. Keep going until it fills up. When it's tall enough, you stop applying pressure before you pull off. The only thing that matters on the inside, I think, is that you just make sure that the buttercream teardrops are touching each other so that you don't have no buttercream in some spots. You just want it to be nice and full like that. Yeah? When I press with my hand, the buttercream starts to come further out to the edge. But we do want to press it down a little bit because we want to secure the layer to the bottom one. And let's continue piping. Again, same technique. And the last step is just some dried roses. These are just for look. They are edible. Do they taste amazing? Probably not, but they're pretty. Break a few of them up. Just sprinkle it for look. And that's our raspberry rosewater done. It really is that easy. There is nothing more to it. It looks pretty, but it's super, super easy.